Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com.
Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/hernameis.
Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
I just can't be this person. I can't work in this office. I hadn't come out yet, so I was struggling, I think, with that sort of unhappiness. I didn't want to work at this insurance company. And I think when I first saw that Now magazine ad and that tiny little print in that little box in the back, it wasn't that tiny, it's pretty, but it was staring at it and going, oh, do I do it? Do I apply for this job? Like, holy cow, this is my job. You know, people are coming up to me, you gotta apply for this job. So those moments of, you know, you can go back 24 years and remember looking at a magazine or a newspaper to look at an ad and stare at it and go, yeah, I mean, what do I have to lose? Let's just go for it. But you do have a moment. You don't ever have that first moment of, yeah, I want to go for it. You always start with, oh God. And then you go, oh, okay, I'm going to go for it. But there is that moment. My name is Ingrid Randoja. I'm the deputy editor of Cineplex Magazine.
Hi, my name is Emily Milling.
And I'm Jenny Tang, and this is Her Name Is, a podcast about creative women you should know. We've combed the city of Toronto to find some of the most talented and inspiring women working in creative industries.
Every other week, we will tell you one of their stories. We want to share their experiences with other amazing women that are looking for inspiration to do the same.
This week, we talked to Ingrid Randoja, a film critic who is now the deputy editor of Cineplex Magazine.
Let's be honest, many of us find ourselves working jobs just to get by. It pays the bills, it pays the rent, and maybe even has benefits. Perhaps we were really excited when we first started, but soon enough we start to dread it.
Ingrid had a secure job at an insurance company when she graduated from university. There was a path set out for her, and she was supposed to eventually move up the corporate ladder.
Except she hated it.
It was a summer job. My best friend at the time's father was executive there, and so he helped us get a summer job. She had worked there many times, and so I got the summer job, and that allowed me to get an apartment with her and somebody else in Toronto. So you had apartments. At that point, you know, sharing rent. I had the job. It was just a lot of calling people in America to ask about policy numbers and problems. And then I moved to somewhere else, and all I remember is every time there was some sort of mathematical problem or something I had to solve, I just panicked and asked somebody to help me because I couldn't do it. But it was in a cubicle, and at that point still people were able to smoke at their desks with those smokeless ashtrays. You have these little things and there are little motors going at people's desks. I think that's just amazing. But and people would come with the mail carts and the whole bit. And but yeah, so I worked there, and I don't remember what I did so much even because it was so clerical. We had teams and we worked on sections and special products, but it seemed also, you know, foreign to me. But I realized this is what people do, and so I need to figure out what I'm going to do if I'm going to keep doing that. And I realized I don't enjoy any of this. This is not fun. Working in an office with numbers and insurance policies, it just doesn't interest me.
What did interest Ingrid was film, and her mother had a huge part in fostering that.
The thing about my mother is that she just loved movies so much, and we talked about movies, and I love movies at a young age, and you know, we talked about Humphrey Bogart, and she thought he was really good looking, and we had an argument once. I thought Rock Hudson was good looking, and she thought Humphrey Bogart was good looking, and I couldn't believe it. So I always remember that. We laughed afterwards, but it's like, you're crazy. That doesn't make any sense. But as I get older, I can see why she might think Humphrey Bogart was good looking. But yeah, so they were, and my mom died when I was 30, so she lived long enough to see me get a job in Now magazine and interview movie stars, and I think that made her quite happy. I don't think I'm not a person who was, a lot of writers who are creative writers, especially nonfiction, are like, I knew I wanted to be a writer, and that wasn't my case at all. I just enjoyed movies. I kind of felt like if I was going to, I kind of liked movie criticism, and I read it in high school, I think, which is unusual for a lot of girls to be reading Pauline Kael or J. Scott, which I did. I would get their books and buy them and read them. So I realized that I liked movies so much, but I don't have that creative urge to make them. So, but to comment on them and to figure them out and to see them in a bigger pop culture sense was always interesting to me. And movie history really interests me. So that's what my mom and I would talk about. And so I think that pushed me forward.
Ingrid grew up in Burlington, Ontario, and came from a tight-knit family that was full of encouragement.
I had an older brother and sister who did very well in school, so I think that I set a good example in our house too. And our parents were, they were very kind of quiet parents. They didn't push us a lot, but they just sort of encouraged us to, do what we want. And they were very worried about school, so wanted us to do well in school, and we did. But I think we all sort of had this confidence. My sister started doing plays in high school after me. My brother was into science, so we all had kind of different roles. We didn't speak English at home. We speak Estonian. My dad was older. He was 50 when I was born, and I have 2 younger sisters. So at one point in our house, my dad was getting old age pension and baby bonus at the same time. And my mom was almost 20 years younger than him. She had a bit of a disability. She had an illness as a child during the war, and so she wasn't medically treated properly, so her leg wouldn't bend, so she had a limp. And I think that affected her sense of self-esteem. I think she was a bit sad about some things in her life. They both survived the war and came here and met here in Canada. But my mom especially was quite a funny person, and my dad didn't speak a lot. He was very quiet. So it was a family where the 5 kids really kind of were each other's best friend and hung out.
Wanting to keep her career options open, Ingrid went into communication studies at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario. She figured she could go into marketing or be a writer of some sort. However, after graduation, she ended up at an insurance company and stayed on for a few years so she could pay off her loans.
In those 3 years after university, in my mid-20s, I realized, so this isn't good because I don't want to work at an insurance company and I'm not very good at it. But again, people kind of liked me, but I thought I could just kind of coast to this mid-level, and it was so depressing to think about that.
It was the oh-so-familiar quarter-life crisis and the what the hell am I doing with my life sort of situation. Dreading a future of insurance policies and boring office work, Ingrid left for a job at the Ontario Arts Council.
I actually I left for the first time and worked at the Ontario Arts Council in a secretarial because it was in the film area. So I had some interest in film and I got that job. But that was even more clerical. And I left within 3 weeks in tears and got my job back at Manulife. And then I said, okay, if I leave again, I said Manulife. If I leave again, it has to be for something that's going to be different, and I'll take my chances.
And her chance came when she decided to take the plunge into film.
I had written, in university, at Wilfrid Laurier University, where I went, I had written movie reviews for the paper because I realized, I just really like doing this. And that was fun, and it'd be great to kind of continue on, but I didn't take journalism or anything. So I graduated university, worked at an insurance company, and was really unhappy at my life. And decided that I have to make a change, and what I want to do is write about movies, but how do I do that? I don't really know. So what I decided to do was to quit my job in my late 20s and start working at Sam the Video Man. So that Sam the Video Man was taken purposely that I could be in the video thing and to get experience in that. So that was sort of the reason to go in there and taking a pay cut. And socially, you go from working in an insurance company, 9 to 5, you have to kind of dress up, to going to working in a video store. In your late 20s, that is a step down financially and socially. So, but I also gave myself a time limit. I didn't want to be there forever, so that was the choice to make there. But it was an opening to my future. I felt like I need to figure out what my future is, and that was my opening. And it's like Quentin Tarantino was in around this time too, right? This is late 80s, early 90s, where working in a video store wasn't that bad. It was kind of this badge of honor to this weird way. So I was probably one of the oldest workers there, and I quit that job and wrote for their Sam the Video Man magazine. So I got some clippings from reviews of things that are coming out every month at the video store. And I was there for about a year and a half, and I realized I have to figure out what I'm going to do. So I started taking film courses at university at night, thinking, well, maybe I'll get my master's in film and become a film professor. But just around that time when I was doing that, a job came open in Now Magazine, was pointed out saying, we're looking for a film reviewer, freelance. So I applied with the clippings I had from high school, from university, and from Sam the Video Man magazine, and got an interview, and along the way I got the job, and I was there for 11 years.
Because her position at Now was freelance, she held on to her Sam the Video Man job.
So I would go work at Sam the Video Man, and then my first job was to run home and do an interview with Michael Apted, the British director, from my house in my apartment at my lunchtime. And it was for a movie with Class Action, and I kept thinking, gosh, this poor man, this great director doesn't know that I've run home from lunch from Sam the Video Man to do this interview, which I've never done and I'm not really trained at, and wrote back and finished putting back videotapes on a wall.
With no formal training in journalism or experience in a newsroom, she struggled to deal with the rough personalities within the industry. She began to wonder if she had made the right decision.
I think, again, that story in my first couple of weeks, or my first week at Now Magazine, where the person that I was working with, who I admired, questioned my ability. That was a hard time. But then I remember they got resolved. But that was a hard time because here I am, not making much money. I don't have any experience, but I know movies and I know myself, and that was a bit of a tough time. But that's what you do now. You would just, do assignments, and so it was hard there because John Harkness he has since passed away, but he was kind of a gruff, tough guy, and he wasn't set on me. He wasn't sure that he was kind of mean. He kind of made me cry once because I don't know if you're going to be any good. I don't know who you are, but I just said in my head, I said, you know what, this is my chance of a lifetime, so I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make this happen, and if they don't like me, they'll let me go, but I'm not going to let him, this is my first time doing something I really love. I'm going to hang in there. I'm just going to try my best, and, worked out. But that was that moment of, okay, don't let this person who doesn't kind of know you or believe in you get you down. You have to fight through that, and that's always your big test, right? When you do something new for the first time, somebody will say something, and you just say, okay, I'm not going to let that get me. I'm going to hang in there. Actually, Cameron Bailey, I always say this to him. He said to me, don't worry about him. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're fine. You're doing good. And just that little word of encouragement from somebody. And I think now when I see a new person at any job, or even at hockey, you just say, keep at it. You're doing fine. Don't worry. And you don't even know how much that will help somebody. That little word of encouragement. So, and I think we could all probably do more of that in our world, no matter what you do.
Journalism, especially entertainment journalism, is dominated by men. Female film critics are few and far between, so at times, Ingrid felt like she was going at it alone.
I felt kind of alone sometimes, but again, so happy that I was doing it. But there wasn't very many of us, and so I think that would have been helpful. Maybe to have someone to be a sounding board about things. So I don't think I had like a mentor. I did not have a mentor in the industry whatsoever. Like I was completely newbie, so there's nobody to go talk to about. I want to work at Now Magazine or be a film critic or work at Sam the Video Man. So I didn't have a mentor that helped me make the professional decisions. No, I didn't have any kind of mentor like that. No, I don't. I was trying to think of when I was at Now, I had Susan Cole, my editor, believed in me and was a woman who really wanted a woman there. I was really happy to have one, and she obviously encouraged me. She was tough the first couple of months, pushing me and making me better. She definitely helped make me feel comfortable that I belong. And again, this was a couple of kind words from Cameron Bailey at the time when I was really nervous. Steadied me and made me feel better because I really admire his writing, and I really liked him as a person. So that was important. Only when you start working do you find that there's Liz Braun, Johanna Scheller, all these people in the industry who you meet, and Karen Gordon, all these people that are female writers, Anne Brody, that I would talk to, and we'd laugh and see each other at parties and kind of talk about the industry, but don't really hang out or anything like that. We're so tough on ourselves compared to men. If you had a bunch of male movie critics here, they would have a litany of things they're proud of. And I think it's so interesting because as women, we do not... Well, first of all, I mean, just backtrack. There's only maybe 20% of all film critics are women. So there's not even a lot of us putting our opinion out. Like, why is that? What have we been socially trained to not feel that our opinion about a movie is worthwhile? Or maybe not that that's the case. It's just that the men who want to be film critics are just so incredibly strongly opinionated and sure of themselves. So they're putting that out there, which translates as being capable and confident. And we may be just at that in our head, but we don't maybe show it the same way. So when you ask that question, again, it comes right down. I say, well, nothing have I done that's a huge accomplishment, except for the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing.
In hindsight, though, Ingrid wished she had been more assertive in the newsroom and in her writing, especially as a female film critic.
I wish that I had, kind of found my voice a bit earlier as a writer, and that passivity that we're talking about being a bit of a passive writer, a bit of quiet, and also not maybe standing up and speaking out for myself. I kind of wish I had done that earlier when I was at Now, and being a bit more, straightforward, and because they're very powerful voices there, and you needed to speak up for yourself. So I wish I'd had more confidence, but I felt like I just got the job, and having it and holding on to it was enough of my struggle. But I wish I'd been a bit more confident and a bit more outspoken about what I would like. I don't think that would have necessarily hurt me, but I wish I had a bit more confidence in my writing and who I was, as a person at the time. But I felt so kind of happy that I got there and grateful, and didn't want to wreck it. Didn't want to lose my chance. What would I do to lose it? And not like I'd ever had huge problems, but I just think I could have, John would just pick every movie he wanted to see, and I would just go along with it. And I'd be like, I want to talk to this person. I think I would do a better job than you. And I think I should have, stated that. I think I'm better for that job. And forget seniority, you're not as good as me for this person. But I didn't do that, and I kind of wish I had more confidence to speak up.
On the flip side, she believed that those personality traits helped her greatly with her interview style, especially when it came to asking the follow-up questions, and honesty, which Ingrid considers to be crucial for a good interview.
Listen to what they're saying. Don't just read your paper, because they say something that opens a door, follow it up. And that's always the risky and the best questions, is the follow-up questions. And of course, for movie critics, so many times I've liked the person and not their movie, so you have to put that together too. I remember I interviewed Joel Schumacher for Falling Down, this movie with Michael Douglas, and I didn't really like it, and I had a lot of questions, and he was such a great interview. He's a great interview, and he's answering all these questions, and he actually was talking about, you realize by the end, he talked about the movie he wanted to make, not the movie he made. Like, in his head, it was what he wanted to do, and I'm thinking, you actually didn't do any of that, but I can see now that's the movie you wanted to make. So that became very interesting, because that's not, we're going to end up, your quotes are about the movie that I don't think is on the screen, but that's in your heart. Your intentions were really great, but I think you misfired on this movie. And sometimes you tell, you should be honest. And I think when you sometimes ask a question or say, I found that really interesting choice you made. I personally had some problems with that. You don't start it. I don't ever start the interview, but you kind of move into that direction to talk about it, and you won't believe how relieved people look. Like, now we're engaging about my movie. So, as an actor or director, and that's really great, because then it's like with Benedict Cumberbatch for The Imitation Game. I said, I'm not sure I really liked sort of the gay portrayal of him as a gay man at that time. I found him. I felt like you're holding back on his gayness a little bit, and he was just great. He wanted to talk about that. So that was kind of wonderful that you could have a conversation about that. So, yeah, I think when you trust everybody to do their job, that's a thing, right? When people think movie critics, you think you're all movie fans. It's no, it's really a lot of really thinking out your strategic planning. You have 8 to 10 minutes to talk to somebody. What do I want? Let's go. Let's get it. Hopefully they think the same way. They're there to help me, and I'm there to help them.
For you, the listeners of Her Name Is Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service.
This week, we recommend The Edible Woman by Margaret Atwood. The novel follows a 20-something woman through her difficult decisions and her often captivating reactions to them.
Perfect for anyone trying to figure out what happens next in life.
To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/hernameis.
That's audibletrial.com/hernameis for your free audiobook. During her time at Now magazine, Ingrid went from being a film critic to a film editor. She interviewed countless celebrities and attended important screenings. She watched about 250 movies per year and got to write about it. Pretty much a dream come true for her. However, after 11 years, she was beginning to feel burnt out and even a little bored.
And then the job at Cineplex came up, which suited my life much better, and I really think we do a great job talking about the movies every month in the magazine, so I'm really proud of what we do, and it suited me better than Now at that time. I met somebody, I wanted to buy a house, I needed to have sort of a more regular lifestyle. So that was good. But there is that moment, and that most of the time you always kind of stay in that scared moment and you don't go forward, but when you do, and then another moment when I decided to leave Now magazine, I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not me. I want to keep doing this job, but it's not me anymore. This is not my place anymore. I want to leave this place. And that was scary because I went to be freelance for a year before I got the job at Cineplex. So, I had to hustle and get writing jobs, and I also realized I wasn't a great freelancer. It wasn't my personality. I didn't really enjoy it. One advice that I got when I was, leaving Now was, you kind of have to look after yourself. You have to do what's best for you. So no matter what people are saying or guilt you feel or remorse, in the end you have to look after yourself. So I needed that sort of advice at a time when I was making a transition to leave something that I felt very secure in. So that, I think, for me, helped me decide to leave a place that I was very secure in, that could have been in there for now, I could still be there. And I realized I wasn't happy, and so someone again reminded me that it's, you don't need to work for somebody just because you have worked there for a long time. You can make a change. And so I said, you're right. And that's for my partner and other people too. So, yeah. Look out for yourself.
Now that Ingrid is the deputy editor at Cineplex Magazine, she's had the opportunity to settle down and assert herself into a position that allows her to share what she's learned over the years.
I feel super, super happy in my life as a person and in my career. I am really blessed, really happy. I never say if you have to be good to be lucky or lucky to be good. I don't know if that's true. I think it's just a question of trying to figure out what you want to do and moving forward towards it. And I was able to do all the steps. Was lucky to get the job at Now, but I felt I also was pretty good at that point as a young woman writer to do that. But it's sort of like you kind of have to move forward and trust in yourself, and I feel like I've done all those things. So I look back and I feel really blessed and really lucky, and I really like my job. I don't know how many people can say that, but I go to my office, and though it's the same sort of writing, a lot of the same writing every month in the magazine, it's something that is really interesting to write about. And then I feel like all my knowledge can be used. Marnie will sometimes ask me, you come in, what was that movie about? And I'll be able to tell her, because I feel like I've earned that. I know that stuff.
Ingrid has been in the industry for a while now, and while she's noticed that the representation of women has gotten slightly better, she feels that there's definitely room for improvement.
And I write an awful lot about men. I write all about men. There's hardly any girls to write about. And Marnie and I look at our magazine and we go, where are the people of color and where are the women that we can cover and put in the magazine? Visually, I think that's super important, and that's I do 2 pages called Casting Call about movies that are being made and who's been cast. And I struggle every month to find a story that's not about, you know, Jessica Chastain's next movie or the hot 5 or 6 actresses, because it's still, I mean, it's changing, but it's very limited. So as a woman in the industry, I try to find those stories because they're important. That, you know, we're 50% of the population, and we're over 50% of the audiences. So, and women like superhero movies just as much as other, you know, so we like it, but we just need to be visualized a bit more and put in pages of magazines that aren't Vogue, but about the business of movies. So I think eventually those voices will start to come into the blockbusters or the bigger films that come into cinema. I think that's happening. I think like this is a cover of Hollywood Reporter or what is it, This Week Variety, that has a whole row of picture of women saying, we want to be involved in your blockbusters in Hollywood, like let us in, this is the club we want to get in. And that club will let you in if you make money. It doesn't really, that's the first thing, but they're also taking chances on the boys, fanboy men who make smaller indie movies that are about action heroes, and then they get the big ones. So until we get to make those, or until those get made, or we choose to make those, we won't be heard. And I think we're starting to break down the walls and saying, well, we are making these movies, let us make these films. So I think that's happening. But to your question for Cineplex, is the indie films, if they're showing, I think it's harder now for an indie film person to even get in theaters. When I started in that magazine in the 90s, I mean, sexualized videotape is always the marker when indie films became part of pop culture and made them way into screens so people could see them. And again, I think sexualized videotape might not be made, but it would have been on Netflix somewhere. So people will see it, but in a different venue. So that is problematic. But at the same time, there's actually more places to get your work out there than ever before. So it's navigating it for people who are creative, from music to writing to films. You have more channels, but how do you get on those channels, and how do you make a living while you're getting on those channels? And that's the big question. And there's more people doing more creative stuff than ever before. And some of them should be doing it, some of them shouldn't be. And the level, like, talent will always rise up no matter what you do. Whether you will always be super successful, who knows, but talent will be noticed in what you do. And that's something I think that has to be said over and over again when you're doing something. If I'm pretty good, somebody will notice this, but I need to, start making it, but they will notice. I feel like, and we talked about it, but maybe I'll mention again too, is that there's a woman out there who wants to write about movies, but doesn't want to make them, but wants to write about movies. Just hang in there and find a place to do it. Get your clippings, get your online stories, get them out there, so when a job comes up or a placement comes out, you have something to show them, because you can't make the next move until you have something that you've done. Even if it's a freelance for free story in the local little newspaper, or anything that you can submit and create, keep doing it and keep trying to move that thing forward. But you can't do it until you can just have something that you can show people. And I think, like I said, there's not that many more of me out there, but there are people like me out there. And so how can they make a life for themselves doing what they find interesting? And so all I can say is keep encouraging and to move that forward, and have a couple of aha moments when you take the chance, because it worked out for me, and it could work out for anybody else if there weren't a lot of them, but when they happen, you kind of jumped on them.
Jumping on these opportunities or aha moments can mean leaving a secure job, and it can mean being uncomfortable and scared for a while. But ultimately, it can also mean new and exciting opportunities that can be life-changing.
You can support Her Name Is by following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and rating and reviewing the podcast. That will help us find more listeners like you. And if you like the show, tell a friend. You can contribute to the podcast at hernameispodcast.com.
Sponsorship and partnership opportunities are available. If you're interested, send us an email at info@hernameispodcast.com. Thank you for listening and supporting the show.
Special thanks to everyone that supported us so far in creating this podcast, including Ben Donnelly, Justin DeClue, Cindy Milling, Sang Tang, and our furry friends George Michael, Milosh, and Godzilla.
If you are or know of a woman in the creative industry in Toronto, we'd love to meet you. Email us at info@hernameispodcast.com or get in touch through Facebook or Twitter. We can't wait to hear from you.
This episode was produced and edited by us, Emily Milling
and Jenny Tang. Music was written by Emily, and this podcast is a product of Can Make Productions.
Thanks for listening.
Unfortunately, not everything will be handed over on a silver platter when you're on the path to your dream career. And that's when swallowing your pride is a necessary thing to do.
Like when I got the chance in our magazine, oh my God, I'll do anything to keep this job, so I'm not going to screw it up, because it's my chance. I didn't have that energy when I walked into Manulife every morning. So you find out what gives you that, and you'll swallow your pride too. That's another thing. You have to swallow your pride. If someone will ask you to, I did the listings for the First Run movie theaters at night. It's a Joe job. I thought, why do I have to do this? It's like, well, no, it's part of this job description, so just do it. Just type in those listings, and it was like hours. We would manually type in all the movie titles for the Blur Cinema, Fox. I did that for years. I was in my 30s. I'm doing this. I don't like it, but I got to do it. So, because it allows me to go and, interview Jodie Foster. So there you go. So that's the yin and yang.